What's up, everybody? How's everybody out in YouTube land tonight? This is our post-turkey, post-pie, post-Thanksgiving. Josh says mean things. We're up to episode 14. Can you believe it? Episode 14. Started out with just a crazy dream, and here we are. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I know what you're thinking today. I know what y'all are thinking. Yes, we're talking moonshine. Look at this beard. Of course, we're talking moonshine. Look at this. I've been growing it. I have a still out in the woods right now. I've been writing down my whole process. Let's get to it. No, that's not what we're going to talk about today. But this beard would make you think otherwise. It's a little much right now. It's a little much. I agree. It's a little much. It'll be coming off here soon. I've just been too lazy. So we're rocking our new Azulox Visual shirts. We just launched our merch store today. There is a code for all you email subscribers. If you like the stuff that we've been wearing, like Josh Says Mean Things, or shirts that say mean things, we just launched that with a code if you're in our super secret email list of all 83 of you. What's up, Mark? How's everybody? Buttons, how y'all doing? Steven, Ronnie, Evelyn, the Buttons, how's everybody doing today? If you can hear me, I hope y'all are out there. Let me know that you're out there listening. I think we have a fun show tonight. We have a lot of photos. We have a lot of photos today. I think we have 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. We got some late submissions and some, it'll be fun. We'll have a good time. I think the point of all this, hey, you get to hear me say mean things about your photos, but more than that, you learn from other people's photos too. So we have a lot of portraits today, which is cool. We haven't done a lot of portraits, but we have a lot of portraits today. So that'll be fun. That's actually something that I shoot a lot of, so it's good. No bird photos for me to have to talk about today, so that's always fun. Although I did see Steven post some really fun duck photos over this weekend. So I still don't like shooting birds because they don't talk back to me. I need people to treat me bad. So yeah, anyway, we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get on, and then we'll start talking about it here in about maybe a minute or two. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. And I also want to say shout out to all my Patreons for helping me through some tough times, because it's been not awesome this year. So Patreons, thank y'all. For most people, only patrons can submit images to shows like Josh Says Mean Things. We do a whole bunch of other stuff. Some of our educational posts have been having bonus Lightroom presets in them. So that's been fun, something we've been doing. And then we've been writing a whole bunch lately. We've been talking a lot about creativity and UV lights and how to use those, and I don't know, just all kind of things. One of the photos from this Josh Says Mean Things is going to be our next. It's probably going to be my next post. One of our patrons, Miss Tiffany, asked a question, and I'm going to talk about it tonight. But I'm probably going to write it up because I think it's a great skill to have, how to shoot large groups. And I think as people who want to maybe try to make money with your photography, that being able to shoot large groups is a really crucial for weddings, corporate events, family portraits, any of those things. Learning how to shoot a large group is a really good skill and technique to have. And if you can make them unique, even better. So we'll be talking some about that here in just a little bit. Yeah, so I'm going to wait one more minute because it's Austin. Pflugerville for me, up north. Yeah, we're way up north in Peeville. But we always give people about a 5-minute head start just because I know everybody has a life and all of those good things. So, yeah, if you're out there listening, go ahead and just say hey in the comments so I know who's out there. I see some of y'all, but it's hard for me to know who all is listening. Yeah, cool. And that's Josh talking 100 miles an hour. All right, so let's take a look at our first image. And actually one of our very first patrons, Miss Mia. Y'all see photos of Mia all the time. She is a model, not a photographer. So I always ask her to send photos that other people have taken of her, which I think is kind of fun. So if you are a model in one of our Patreons, hey, Mimi, what's up? Mimi, fellow Seguinite, right? Anyway, but I think it's cool that Mia submits photos, and some of our other models do as well. Jenna is a self-portrait artist, so she's a model and a photographer, but that's also fun. But I think it gives a neat perspective to see what people kind of do with the same subject, right? So Mia doesn't change, but the photos of her change quite a bit. And so for me, it's always kind of an interesting way to see her evolution, but also kind of see what other photographers do with her. Mia is probably one of the I don't know, probably my top 5 of people that I've ever photographed in my now 13-year photographic career. So first thing about this photo, I love the color. Okay, if you know me, which I'm assuming all of y'all do, I love color. I love bright poppy colors, and this is kind of in my wheelhouse of what I would like to shoot. Right, funky sunglasses, this really fun like orangey outfit, and then this really bright pop of color. Love all that. All of that works. It's a fun kind of turn your shoulder. Let's see if I can do it in my swivel chair. Right, kind of a turn your shoulder, flip your hair kind of shoot. And I love all of that. I think all of that is working well. I think if you notice her hands, a lot of times in a shoot like this, your hands will get very stiff, right? As you're moving around, you kind of freeze. But I like how Mia's keeping her hands soft, right? So we have contrast between the softness of her hands and the flippy of the hair. So all of that is good. Here's where I'm going to say something mean. I know that's the title of the show, so you're going to have to take it or leave it. But, and this is going to be a theme for the rest of the show, where to crop. Do we crop off? What's up, B? Welcome back to Texas. Where to crop, right? So is it at the wrist, at the elbow, at the shoulder? In this case, the hair. So if we notice that strand of hair that is flipping around is cropped off, and it doesn't have any room to move. And so this is one of those photos that if, instead of being center focused, if everything was moved about 20 degrees to the left. And so if you look at her left thigh to the very corner of the photo, and then her body would be a diagonal up to the upper right, and then her hair would have more room to move. But in this case, that hair gets cropped. Honestly, if it was me, I would just clone out that top piece of hair. It's really distracting that it doesn't have any space for its own movement. And for me, that kind of takes it down a letter grade. So normally if I would have said this was an A, this would be a B photo for me now, because that hair is just in the way. The other thing, I don't know if it was shot with strobes. I'm assuming it was. But the strobes weren't firing at a fast enough capture speed, or maybe there was too much ambient, but there's a lot of movement in the hair that I don't think is wanted. This feels like it wants to be a sharp photo, and around the left eye and the glasses and the left part of the hair, there is some movement, and not in a good way. So I think the ambient strobe mixture wasn't quite right, and so we're getting some blur there. Well, I don't think we want to be blurred. Just some little things like that would take it from me from an A to a B. Just those little things that can go a long way. The other thing that could make it a little bit stronger, that right hand is kind of lost in the flip. And so having it somewhere where it's visible, even either behind or up or around, where that right hand is there's just kind of a floating elbow there. You know, and I've met Mia. She does have 2 arms. I can vouch for her. She does have 2. Yeah, so that's our first one. Yeah? What do y'all think? Y'all love the color, though, right? The color's super fun. Orange glasses, orange dress, orange background. That all works. Awesome. All right. This one is from, actually, this is from my former assistant, Mr. Awesome Magru, who's out on his own in New Braunfels, making all kind of cool food and drink photos. Yeah, I really like this one. We're going to take a little drink of water. I really like this photo. When I first saw it, I didn't notice it, but what's cool about it is not only are there triangles, right? So as humans, we tend to like rule of odds, right? 1, 3s, 5s, and not so much 2s, 4s, 6s. And so if we notice, there's 7 drinks, right? Rule of odds. But then each drink is kind of its own. There's a group of 3, a group of 3, a group of 1. And then we have 3 groups. So we're working with a lot of odds there. So I think it's good the way that the drinks were all placed. What's also cool is that they're shallowed up the field, and so only the center drink is in focus. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I like it. And so that center margarita is the star of the show, and the rest of the drinks are kind of the backup band, right? So this is Justin Timberlake with all his backup bands, not so much the NSYNC days, right, where everybody was kind of equal. I've struggled learning how to crop right. I tend to shoot high over the head. You know, Mimi, that's a great point. It's weird. If you're actually shooting for magazines, you want a lot of space over the head so that there's room to put the magazine title. Yeah, that's kind of a weird. Normally, but for like headshots, you wouldn't do that. And then we always have like the 3x2 crop versus the 4x3 crop, or some of those other ratios, right? 8x10 is a very different crop than a 3x2, which is what cameras natively shoot. So that's always kind of a weird thing too, especially shooting verticals. I don't mind crop, like 8x10 vertical looks okay, but 8x10 horizontal never looks right to me. I don't know. That's just me. I like more panoramic shots though, so there you go. But I do really like this drink photo. I love the colors. There's a lot of pop to it. And then there's also this really nice out of focus, like bokeh in the background. So it's very interesting. The only thing I would say, I would have come a little bit lower. There's that bottom 5% that's all black, doesn't need to be there. So either by cropping or by just tilting the camera up a little bit, it's going to make those drinks feel even more heroic. And then I think it would have raised that margarita where it sits on the background is bright white. And so up against some of those darker, it wouldn't be so washed out. And so we could have gotten rid of some of those really, really bright highlights that aren't adding to the photo. And also, I don't think a lens profile was applied here, or the table is curved. I can't tell, but the front of the table feels a little bit bowed, and that's usually when either the lens profile isn't applied, or sometimes when we have presets, we apply the wrong lens profile to a photo. But if you notice, that front kind of bows out to us a little bit, and then some of the edges are just a little bit bowy. And so my guess is that the lens profile was not applied here, or maybe it's a round table and it's just throwing me off. But either way, you know, if I had a restaurant, this would be the type of photo I'd love to have. I love it in how the red drink with that little bead of sweat running down, right? That's good in a drink, not good if you're on the defense stand, right? If you're trying to give some sworn testimony, you have that bead of sweat, people aren't going to trust you. On a drink, though, it looks great. But maybe it's because there's a jalapeno on that. Maybe that's why it's sweating, because it's a spicy drink. Yeah, so good job, Austin. Keep shooting like this. This looks really clean. I bet the client loved it. Ooh, I loved it. This may be my favorite photo of the set. This is from Jim Mckay. Jim does a lot of video work with us. I love this photo. It feels like it could be in a Coen Brothers, like that's the bad lawyer who's trying to not let hula hoops get sold, right? Doesn't kind of feel like that, like Coen Brothers feel. I love the color grading on this. And if y'all want to learn more about color grading, we've been doing some Lightroom Lives. I will be doing another one in 2 weeks. But learning how to color grade, right? So instead of taking what's actually there in the colors, where we're kind of adding and subtracting colors in the highlights, the midtones, the shadows. I think this is a really good job where it's got these kind of like cool blue shadows, especially that far window just has this really cool tone. And the face, it's not really a warm tone, but it's warm-ish. And I just think it really plays well. I love the hands. Yeah, Fincher. Yeah, it could be Fincher, that kind of desaturated. I love the strength of the hands, right? Really kind of pushing down against that table. And the only negative I would say, that window in the center, I feel like there was a great skyline. Yeah, Thomas J. Henry. There's no helicopter, come on. But, you know, I wish that center blind was up more, because I think it feels like there's a cool skyline there. Maybe that could give a little more context to where the viewer is. That'd be the only thing I would take away. But I love the framing. I love the aspect ratio, right? That more horizontal crop, more that 16:9 crop. But it just has this feel to it, that short lighting, right, where you only see a strip of the face lit and the rest just falls the shadow. But the shadows aren't like crunchy black. They're kind of like smooth black. So yeah, all around, I really love the shot, Jim. Really, really well done. That middle blind is the only thing that bothers me. Oh man, what a great flower shot from Mark. You know, one of the things I think with flowers, as well as people, is that learning where to crop, right? What to put in the frame and what to leave out. And with flowers, it's always like, do I put the whole flower in? Do I put 3 flowers in? Or do I get really close and find a composition? And so I think this is a good example of, we can almost see a triangle coming up to the center of the flower, and then we have the stamen in the center. That really cool detail. Look at the bubbles like around that stamen, and then this like red and purple as it transforms into red, right? So we have this blue and purple going into red. So we're kind of playing with just like a third of the color wheel, right? That red to blue section. So really well done. Water droplets, all of that. But I love how the center veins, that purple, those two ones, kind of form that triangle, right? Again, rule of odds, right? We like, and for geometric terms, we like triangles more than squares. We like pentagons more than hexagons more than pentagons. Whatever's 5. We like the 5-sided one more than the 6-sided one. But in this case, right, we have this cool kind of triangle shape pointing up, and we have these leading lines coming up to that center red. And so that's just really well done. Like, I could absolutely see this in like a really nice hotel's lobby, like the big print on the wall when you walk in. There's a set of like 3 of these photos, different, all done in the same style, right? That's kind of what it feels like to me. That like nice flower abstract. I cheat a lot when I shoot flowers. I cheat. Actually, my whole career, I cheat. I use color so much that I distract you from the fact that I don't really know composition as well as I should. I struggle with like where to put flowers and like where to crop, right? Do I crop right above the eyes or like right at the hairline? And for humans, I get it right, but for flowers, I don't always get it right. So I just bring in gels and strobes and just make it look weird so you don't care that the cropping is wrong. But really well done, Mark. I really like this one. I saw this one come up and I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, Steven. Oh, it's color graded? Nice. Have you been enjoying playing with the new color grading, and are you using the new color grading tools in Lightroom? Have you been enjoying that? We also just did some Lightroom lives on color grading because it's so cool. I'm so glad they have it now. I get carried away with it, and I always have to remind myself to tone it down, which is kind of the story of my life. I'm kind of out there and have to remind myself to tone it down, Josh, just a little bit. All right, so for this photo, this is what I think Bear Lake. Is that what you said, Steven? You know, I love how clean the sky is. I'm guessing from knowing you and talking to you all the time that you used maybe like topaz or something to clean out the sky. But it is a very clean and serene sky, and the reflection is really nice. The part that's a little bit harder for me, I think, is the trees and the tree line and the reflection of the trees, and then the rock as well, are both, I think, underexposed a little much. I think the tree line and the rock could both come up to maybe half stop to another stop. And I think it would make for a little bit more compelling imagery. There's just a lot of blockiness in our colors. And the shadows especially. All right, we want to see more there. Not Seymour. What kind of plants do you have, Seymour? No. But I just think that for me, I like the composition. I love the rock on the right-hand side. I just would have liked to have seen a little more detail coming out of those shadows. I just think it's a little bit overly dark. But the stars are really well done. There's no movement in the stars, which is nice. And they're really well defined, which that can be sometimes hard to do. Some lenses will do weird shapes with stars. It'll make them linear instead of round. And so all of that is really well controlled. I love the light hitting the center of the mountain range in the back. Like, that's really cool. It's a very good, strong point of interest. But yeah, the thing that I would fix on this the most is that shadow detail kind of up in there. Yeah, nothing really cute, clean. Interesting. It just has a very like serene, clean. What's up, Mark? How you doing, bud? We haven't got to your photo yet. It's all good. It's all good. This one's from Brian, who's been out shooting a movie in Florida for the last month. And he sends me 3 chairs and a table. I think he's just trying to mess with me now. No, I love this. This is the type of photo that if I didn't know it was shot this year, I wouldn't know what year it was shot, right? There's no identifying factor. And again, I think we're playing with a lot of rule of odds here, right? We have 1 table, 3 chairs, right? 4 chairs, this photo's not interesting. Okay. Right. Does that make sense? 4 chairs, this photo's not interesting. 3 chairs, it's good. Right. Rule of odds. The one thing that I would like to add to this photo, is I think for something like this, where it's basically a still life, right? There's nothing moving in it. that background horizon line is pretty slopey. Okay. And then that foreground, it makes that foreground line pretty slopey as well. This would be maybe a good use of the Lightroom transform tool if you wanted to make it straight. Now, maybe the intent was to be askew, to feel off, right? So that's a way to make a photo feel off, is to not make things lined up. So again, dealer's choice on this, right? Is it meant to be that way, or is it an oversight? Good question. But I like the blues. Let's look at color, right? I love talking about color. Look at the contrast between the blues and the yellows, right? That's appealing, I think. I think that's a good contrast. And then a lot of times when you have an overhead light like that's hitting the table, a lot of times it's very easy to blow out that center light, just because it's catching more of the light than the kind of radiant part to it, right? The outside part to it. So I think I really like the blue and yellow. And I think the shadows and light of this is good. For me, and this is me, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but that horizontal line bothers me. But horizontal and vertical lines bother me a lot. I go into people's homes and I fix their frames. It's meant to be okay, and that's what I thought. I figured you would know that, but just throwing for the viewers out there, it's just something to be cognizant of. If we're trying to make things straight, to be straight. Now, I think with the way the tilt is and where the negative space is works, right? So if we think about it, kind of looking like a mouth, right? So we have those chairs, and then where the fourth chair would be, it's negative space, and that's where the tilt comes. So it's almost like three chairs abstractly are like eating the next square, right? So it's kind of like Pac-Man eating a little dot. And so I think that's good as well. So for where the tilt is and where the negative space is, I think that works. Anyway, it's a cool atmospheric photo. We like it. All right, this one's from Miss Ronnie D. What's up, Ronnie? Yeah, I thought you might, Brian. And this is how I get dressed up to go to the liquor store now. That's what I walk in with, and they just don't ask me any questions, and it's fine. No, I'm guessing this is Vatican Royal Guard, or something of that effect. What I really like about this photo is the internal framing. So we have really strong horizontal lines at the bottom, and then there's like studded walls on the right, and then we have repeated walls on the left. And so that really frames up our amazing Technicolor guard here. And so, and it makes it feel like the light over his head is his spotlight. And so I really like the framing of this. I think the composition of this is excellent. I think so many times we would see a photo like this where a person is dressed so brightly, and we would just try to put him in the center and not put anything else in the photo. But I think having a little bit of the door, but not all of it, and a little bit of the steps, but not all of it, I think goes a long way to making this an interesting photo. And again, we have rule of odds, right? So we have that main chandelier over his head, but then there's two more behind him. So we have one of him, three of the lights, right? So we kind of have these repeating numbers, but we also have kind of some repeating forms. Now, I will say that this photo, I think this would be a good use of Lightroom's radial tool and adding some exposure just to our subject. He feels a little dull, especially his face. And so adding a radial, and then inside that radial tool, putting some exposure to bring him out a little bit, I think would really bring him off that background a little bit more. As it is, it feels just a little bit underexposed, and maybe that's to keep those lights from blowing out. So I would want to kind of just dodge and burn around our guard, not for the whole photo. I think the tonality of the rest of the photo is good, but just that area around the guard, bring out those highlights, bring out those whites just around those guards. So really make those colors pop even more, right? Bring out a little highlight, bring out a little white on the guard and only the guard. So that also be a good use of in Lightroom when you're using the radial tool. You can do something called, I'm totally blanking on what it's called, luminous masking. All right, luminous masking. And where you can say for, hey, anything that's mid-tone or above, bring it out. Anything shadow or below, leave it alone. right? So we talk about that in some of our Lightroom Live classes. But I think that'd be a good use for this, is just bringing out the whites, just bringing out the colors, and kind of leaving the shadows and the darkness there, but just popping that subject off the background a little bit. Does that make sense? I'm really talking with my hands today. All right. This one is from Miss Jordan. Jordan, I hope you're watching. You haven't said hello if you are. Jordan and I have worked together. I first took Jordan's photo in 2013. Wow, I've been doing this for a while. And this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier about cropping, right? Where do we put hands? Where do we put our subjects' bodies and all that? So first off, I love the vibe of the photo, right? Very, very smooth skin, but really cool tattoos. And we have water and we have a sunset. We have all those things really working for it. The thing that there's two things that bother me. And again, I'm a nitpicker, right? This isn't called Josh Says Nice Things. This is Josh Says Mean Things. So there's two things that would bother me. First of all, right at her waist, her shirt is just doing this little like bulge, just a little bit. And everything else is so smooth. Normally that wouldn't bother me, but because everything is so smooth and flowy, her hair, the light, the water, just that little blip, right, kind of at the bottom part of her shirt, it's kind of troublesome. You could use like Puppet Warp or Liquify to kind of bring that in and just keep that line smooth right on that edge of her shirt. And the other thing, that crop on the elbow, that pose, I don't know, that feels wrong to me. I'm assuming she has the rest of her arm, but I want the hands maybe up where I can see them, right? Here or something up. If we're gonna do this composition, that arm hanging down, I want to see more of the tattoos because they look cool. And so just that crop where it is, I would either bring up my crop higher, so where it's not so noticeable, or by posing, I would change the pose, right, to something that brings that hand up into the shot, because it just feels weird that it's chopped off where it is. But everything else about the photo I really love. Her hair looks great. The way that highlight, short lighting on the side of her face, that warmth of the sunset, right? All the colors in the sky, the colors in the water, all of that works. The rest of her pose, the turn of her body, right? If you think about like shoulder, elbow, we have a good triangle there, right? The upper, right? That one shoulder's up, down, and then we have that elbow. So we have a good triangle there as well. So all that works. For me, the only downside of this photo is just kind of where that's cropped off on the arm. So yeah, some of that is posing. A great book that I just recommended to somebody, and I use it as well, is called Posing by Lindsay Adler. Great book. That's a really good one. There is a Creative Live with Jerry Giannis that's a really great posing tutorial. I'm sure I don't remember how to spell his name. Let's see. I'll type it in the chat. I think this is right. Jerry Giannis posing on Creative Live, I believe. And he goes through like 100 poses in 5 minutes. And it's amazing. But things like that can give you some ideas. I know that it can be hard to come up with poses as you're worrying about composition, as you're worrying about lighting, as you're worrying about the sky, falling in exposure, right? It's hard to be like, oh, I'm taking care of, those 9 things. Now let's talk about your poses, right? Then you get home, you're like, I should have done this. And so some of that just comes with reps. Some of that just comes with, years and years of experience. Really, it just comes with getting old and doing it a lot. That's all it comes down to. But if you want to jumpstart a little bit, I think those are my 2 favorite resources. Lindsay Adler's book on posing, and then the Jerry Giannis book on, he does like a 5-minute video on Creative Live that's really good. So if you're struggling with posing, I think those are great. All right. Funny story. So this is Jessica, and Mark is one of our patrons. What's up, Mark? And we shot their wedding in 2016, 2015, 2016, something like that. And through a referral, one of her bridesmaids reached out to me last week, and we just did their engagements last week. So thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. And so Mark has been so inspired by what we do with speedlights and gels that he went out and got exactly what we shoot with. And so I love it. I love seeing his gel work. He's done some really fun work. And then he has this like supermodel wife that's doing all these fun yoga poses and stuff for him. So really cool. I love where you're going with this photo. A couple things. That pink gel on her back is kind of blown out. And so your eye tends to go to that instead of, maybe to the front side of her body. That'd be the first thing that jumps out. It's also kind of nuking our background a little bit. 2016. Wow. I know we've been doing this for a while. That was awesome. Ranch Austin. So, having a great model is really good. Oh, hey, Colton. My son wants to say hello. There's Colton. He's also the first 5 seconds of our podcast. So if you go to makepodcast.com, you can also hear him interview me in episode 2. So a couple things. Again, with cropping, right? We have a lot of space kind of above her head versus that elbow getting cropped off. It seems like there's cool things going on with her posing maybe, and maybe there's like a hand or a foot. It's hard to tell. And so I think this photo down 5 or 10% would be more interesting, or backed up a little bit, just to see a little bit more what's going on. But that cropping right at the elbow it's not necessarily a no-no, but there's better places to crop that. So I would maybe come up a little bit more on her arm. You don't really want to crop at the joints. So you don't want to crop at the ankle, at the knee, at the elbow, at the neck. Right. So it's just one of those things. It's so hard to kind of get that feel, especially in camera as you're shooting. I do like where you're going with the tonality here, right? Purples and blues. Yeah, I know. She's always doing something wild. Right. And her wearing a white shirt, I'm guessing it's white. It feels white. And using gels can be really problematic because it's very easy to blow out a white shirt. A lot of times when we're doing family photos, I always tell them you can wear anything but white or black. Anything else I can deal with, but a white shirt gets too white, and a black shirt gets too black a lot of times. And so it's hard to shoot with white because if any flash hits it, it's going to be brighter than the face. And so it's very hard to control that ratio between light hitting somebody's face where we want your eyes to go and light hitting somebody's white shirt where we don't want your eyes to go. So a lot of times we might have to dodge and burn the shirt darker to keep more exposure on the face so that your eyes go to the face and not to the clothing. So yeah, the first thing, just that backlight's just a little too hot. It's kind of blowing out. It's really hard to notice that in camera. If you had to boost exposure, you might be able to bring down just that color using the HSL panel. So you can go to luminance, go to the pink, and just drop down the pink. That might help, or the red or the orange, or the magenta, depending on where it falls with your white balance. You could also go to the HSL panel, go to luminance, go to the blue channels, and bring up the blue, and that'll bring up that exposure on her face without adding exposure to the entire photo. Okay, so that's another way to do that. A lot of times when we're shooting portraits, if I don't want to add exposure to the entire photo, and that's a normally lit portrait, I bring up the reds and the oranges, and I'll bring up skin tones without bringing up the rest of the photo. So that's a little pro tip there for you. Using the HSL panel, you can do that in Lightroom or Photoshop. Also, as far as composition goes, center crop isn't. I like center crop. I think it's good. Center compositions are fine. But in this one, I feel like there was something maybe getting more of her body in the frame, or getting more of those joints up and kind of around to fill that frame. I think could be more. I think there's also a very interesting photo, kind of just head and shoulders, right? Kind of getting rid of all that negative space and really kind of punching into the head and shoulders, because she does have kind of a fun expression there of, I don't know what to call it, but that kind of Mona Lisa smile she has. So, yeah. Keep playing, Mark. Good job. Oh, all right. And here's Miss Jenna Citrus. And this is a self-portrait, I believe. I don't think we get flowers like this in Texas. I wish we did. It'd be fun. But it doesn't feel like we do very often. So, but I like this one. So, I'm going to tell you what I think, but just think about your head. Is it more interesting that we see her face or don't see her face? I think it's more interesting that we don't see her face, right? It adds that level of mystery here. And And by not showing the face, it makes it abstract instead of about somebody in particular. It could be about anybody. So by not showing the face, we abstract out a portrait. I also, so I think that's kind of like a big a point to this. The other one is I really like how the dress goes from kind of pink up to this like white and gold, and the flowers are doing the same. So we have some of that symmetry. Yeah, Mark, I know. I get kind of addictive with those things. I don't want to tell you how many lights I have. It's more than 10. What's up, Mary? How you doing? Mary and I met at PPA almost a year ago. Crazy. It feels like 20 years ago with the way that 2020 is going. But hey, Mary, good to have you on here. So this one's Jenna. It's a full body. I would say her skin feels a little underexposed. So just what I was talking about, by going to the HSL panel in Lightroom, you can go to red or orange, or just take the eyedropper and go just to the skin and just bring it up just a little bit. And just that little boost will really bring the skin up and kind of leave the rest of the photo where it is, unless there's a lot of red and orange in it. But that's kind of a nice little like skin brightening trick without having to make the entire photo brighter. Something else you could do, again, that radial tool, and just over kind of her upper half, bring out just a little bit of that brightness where that the green and the flowers kind of stay the same color. So, and I think for a center crop, this one's fine. She fills the frame in as a center. And I really like where this is going. I like her arm placement. I like the softness of her hands. Right, that kind of flow of the hair. So we have this nice flow. The only thing that I think could make it more interesting is having that dress kind of swooshing out to us. As a self-portrait, I don't know how you would do that. You'd have to really have really great timing. But I think having that dress kind of swooshing back to this would really add some energy and life to this, or just another take to it. I'm not saying it's right, but I think it would be an interesting way to go with it. I like having dresses kind of with movement, Doctor Strange style, where there's like capes swirling around and fighting off bad guys. So just having that little bit more of the dress showing some depth and some action, I think could add, because it feels very still life, right? It feels very serene, which is good, but just as another way to work the same photo, add some swooshiness. That's a technical term. You can look that up. Swooshiness. All right, but really, really good job. I really love the pink and gold dress to the pink and gold flowers. So good job. The other thing you could do with this, and we'll see this in a photo in just a little bit, but we could also have flowers exploding in the air, right? It could be right, or like just like raining down. Right, that kind of like apple blossom or cherry blossom, right, where they all start falling down, right? Having those in the air could also add some energy to the photo. So, and if you know me, I'm kind of high energy. Yeah, so awesome. All right, this is from Mimi. What's up, Mimi? Glad to have you throw out a photo. Mimi, is this Kendra? Am I right in knowing who the model was here? I think so. So. I've struggled with this photo. I don't know where to go with it. There's a couple things going for it well, right? We have a model with red hair. That's usually good on my list. A very interesting dress with shiny bits and flowy bits, which are usually a good combination as well. So, we have a couple things that going for it. I feel like this photo has too much space. I just talked about a hair flying and giving it a little space, and now here's a hair flying, and there's not enough space. But there's so much dark and shadow in this, and then the skin just feels, especially along her leg, her skin feels a little mottled. If it were me, there's a couple spots on her above her ankle and on her leg. I would have done a little spot healing on. Just to kind of add some of that smoothness. But it's so dark on the left-hand side. We're kind of losing a lot of detail there. Not a bad thing. I'm all for shadows. But having this kind of loose crop, I'm not saying come in a lot, but come in a little bit. There's just a lot of negative space above her head and off to the left where there's just not anything interesting going on. I think the same cropping, but with her on the left-hand side, instead of on the right hand side, everything else the same would be more interesting. just because it would give kind of her gaze and the plane of her face more room to go. So her face is the plane of her face is looking to the right, and then that's the short side of where the crop is. So it feels a little claustrophobic on one side, and then it feels like dark expanse on the other. And so if we switch those, right? So if we have her face on the left side, with the way she's looking to have more light running away from her, I think it fits the feel of the photo a little bit more. That's me. These are tough, right? Because just that little bit of skin tone, you have that shiny right on her like right side right here, and it's pulling your eye down from her face. And then the shiny in her dress kind of gets lost. So evenings, doing some like selective dodge and burning or radial dodge and burning to bring out her face and arms a little bit, and the skin of her tattoos, like right around the clavicle a little bit up more. And then kind of killing the highlights a little bit on the shiny, just a little bit. Just the highlights though, because our eyes are going basically to her right boob, but not to her face. And I would want to switch those. But yeah, I mean, the tonality of this definitely has a mood, right? I think we can agree that it definitely has a mood. It just feels like we're losing a lot to the blacks, where there's no detail at all. And again, I'm fine with that. I love shooting with very restricted light. I think that's a good technique to learn how to do. One of the things I really like though, if you look at the way her arm follows the line of the leg, we have a really good S. So if you look from her right shoulder, elbow, knee, ankle, right? Can you see that S? It literally almost makes an S. And so I think that's done really well. And I like how the back knee has enough of the black to illuminate or to set off the right knee. But just the skin on the legs gets a little too dark versus the skin on the face, and it looks a little mottled to me. So maybe smooth it out a little bit or do some spot healing on some of the rougher spots just to kind of keep with that flowy, right? We have hair flowing, right? We have a dress flowing, so the skin should flow as well. So let's kind of make them all work together where they all feel like they have that flow to it. But yeah, I would kind of I would just shift her a little bit to this side. And it'd probably actually be pretty easy to do in post because there's no real thing in the background. So it'd be pretty easy to reshift your canvas in post just to kind of move it to one side. Yeah, I agree with Mary on that one. Yeah, a little bit too much up top. I think this as an 8x10 might work better too. I think just getting rid of that upper negative space above her head would work. Or you could do like a fake magazine cover, right? Kind of, and then drop it in behind her hat. That could be interesting as well. There's just a little bit too much dead space. I don't mind it on the left as much as I do on the top. So maybe an 8x10 crop, 4x5 ratio, or put something up there like lettering, right? You could put like a Vogue cover or, something. So anyway, it's cool. The mood is good. The vibe is good. Just that composition is just a little bit off. So, all right. This is from Miss Michelle. I think this was used with my lens. I think my lens shot this one. We were doing a photo walk together at the Wildflower Center, where I'll be shooting tomorrow night, which is why we had to do this on Monday and not Tuesday, because I'll be back out here. They have a new show, wildflower.org, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. They have their new exhibit called Illumination. So they have all these cool lights shows around the gardens. And so that's where I'll be tomorrow night. So they're one of my clients. They're cool. And I like this photo, right? This kind of exploding yellow flower, right? So this is kind of what we talked about. You can either go really close and just show like 3 petals in that center, or this is kind of that medium composition where we show the entire flower, but we have suggestions of other parts. And we have 5 out of focus parts. Good job, right? So we have 1 in focus, 5 out of focus. Good job. The only really distracting part to me is that center stem running through our flower. I would have just lifted that up to get rid of it because it's kind of distracting. It leads our eye away from and past the center part that we're looking at. So composition, I would have taken that middle stick and just raised it up. Because it's running our eyes away from and through our subject, right? And I'm only saying it's our subject because it's what's in focus, right? So, right, our eyes go to what's sharp and what's bright. So if something is bright and sharp, That's our subject because that's where your eyes are going. And if it's not what your subject is, then we have to do some stuff in editing, right? So that's kind of a good general rule, right? Where does your eye go? Is that really where you want the eye to go? So we got to play magicians. We got to do a little tone curve. We got to do a little dodging and burning to get our eyes to go exactly where we want our eyes to go. Okay, that's how photographers are magicians. We do some stuff over here so that we can do the trick over here, right? But good color, kind of that good exploding yellow, good exploding green, kind of firework feel to it. But just that center stick, lift it up, get it out of there. All right. This is from a photographer whose name rhymes with mine. This is from Mr. Kosh. I don't even want to know how long Kosh and I have been shooting together. It's been a while. So I'll give y'all about 3 seconds to look and see. There's two things that I would change about this photo. Yeah, there's two things. I'll give y'all just a beat to think about it. But it's pretty common in these type of photos because it happens. So let me tell you what I like. I like that our subjects are kind of pin spotted off the background, right? That's really well done. Good control of shadows to keep the light just on our subjects and not so much on everything else, right? So good use of restricted light to hit just our subjects and not necessarily everything else, except for the ceiling. I would take a radial brush and tone down that center chandelier. I want your eyes to come back to them where it says keep calm and bhangra on. And I can bhangra. We can get out there and dance. I've shot like 50 Indian weddings, man. I got a kurta. I can dance. Let's go. But yeah, I would tone out that kind of upper third, especially where that center chandelier is. It's a little too bright for me. It distracts from where the people are. The second and biggest part, in the left-hand side of the photo, there's a hotel worker adjusting a table. Maybe it's the DJ. I don't know. Clone that guy out because he's distracting. I don't know. Can y'all see that? Can you see the guy in the back underneath the yellow sign? So that kind of takes away from it for me. That'd be something I would definitely want to clone out. But I love the pop of colors. There's a whole bunch of light going on and nothing's like overexposed, which is really hard to do. And our subjects are just really pin spotted, really cool. The other thing that could have been done, get a little bit lower to get more of the reflection in the floor. I don't know if I would have done that because I really like the way that the keep calm and bhangra on reads, right? It kind of has that Star Wars crawl to it, right? In a galaxy far, far away, right? It kind of has that crawl to it. So I like that. But yeah, I would just tone down the center and then get rid of the person in the back because it's a little bit distracting. But yeah, Indian weddings are fun. If you like color, you'll like Indian weddings. But yeah, there's just so much more vibrance going on. But it's well toned, and that's hard to do. It's very easy to blow out the background. It's very easy to blow out screens and projectors in the back. If your lights are hitting those, you're going to lose all the contrast in the screens. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. So good job controlling on that. I would just take a radial brush and just tone down the exposure and highlights right there in that center part. So good job, Kosh. Whose name rhymes with Kosh. Ha 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 ha. Not sure what happened. Well, that was fun there for a second. I lost everything. Can y'all still see me? Ooh. Hey, guys. I'm not sure what happened there. I just completely lost my... I thought my computer just reset. It did not. But I thought it did there for a second. That was no good. No good. Let's re-add our slideshow. Oh, technology, how I love you. We only have 3 photos left. 3 photos left. Crazy, crazy times. I'll get back to it in a second. I know. Yay, I'm back. I know, couldn't handle my rhymes. I know. All right, let's see. See if we can get back to this. Okay, we're back. We're back, baby. Can y'all hear me? Everybody hear me okay? All right. So, this is a group family photo. There's, I don't know, 20 people in this, 25 people. That's a lot of photos to pose. this is hard to do. Okay. This is hard to do well. And it's certainly a skill to work on this. So let's talk a couple things about it. We're all photography nerds, right? We're all watching a YouTube show where we listen to image critique. So let's be a little nerd about this. Big group photos, if you can, shoot with the longest lens you can and the longest focal length you can. Imagine we shot this with a wide angle, right? We'd be right in that front couple and they would be normal and everybody else would be distorted. All right, so wide angle's out. So the longer lens we go, the narrower the angle of view we can be. Now, why is that important? It's important because then with a narrower angle of view, we can move our lights closer. Okay. And then our lights don't have to work as hard. So for me, I want light to be just on the subject and not on the ground. And in this case, it feels like it was shot about 85, maybe like 135, 150. If you could back up would probably be better. The other thing that I would do is take like 4 steps to my right and I would have aligned people a little bit more so that that tree is in the frame, but it's not right behind people's heads. I don't like trees competing with people's faces. Trees are very powerful of the earth. And so I want them to be there, but not competing with people's faces. And so I'm guessing that only one light flashed on this one. And that's okay. But having the way to do it, long focal length, lights in as close as they can be, 2 lights at 45 degrees. You can't see my other hand. 2 lights at 45 degrees. And then the light on the left, have it pointing to the person on the far right. The light on the right, have it pointing to the person on the far left. And that way the energy kind of gets spread out. Because if you have it pointed to the person closest, they're going to go nuclear. And the people in the corners are going to be dark. And so having that 2 lights cross-lit is kind of what you want. And you want them as close out of frame as you can. And by doing 2 running across, right, if I have 1 light coming across my face, I'm going to have highlight and then shadow. But if I have 2 lights running across, even if they're hard lights, highlight, highlight, not a big deal, right? Because so I never have shadow, so it doesn't read as contrasty, even though I'm using hard lights. So yeah, I want to get them I want those light stands almost in the frame, but not quite. And I want them pretty high so that all that energy is hitting their face and not a lot of the energy is hitting the ground. I tend to keep my lights, I don't point them down. I tend to keep them parallel to the ground. Okay. Because I don't want that energy hitting the ground. I want it going to the face. I don't care if it goes behind them because like in a photo like this, there's nothing behind you and you can't see the shadows anyway. So I want it just skimming over their heads. Now for a photo like this, I would take a linear gradient tool in Lightroom with a negative exposure and darken that foreground so that their faces are the brightest thing. Again, we want to darken that foreground so that you go to the face. And then a lot of times I'll take a radial tool and then add exposure across the group, right? Just across the group, I want to add exposure and let everything else be dramatic. Okay. So good job of trying to control the sky, right? We can see color in the sky. The other thing to do for something like this, when it's this hard, when it's this many people, is just shoot ambient and just let the background go. And just shoot at this distance. You could probably shoot at 2.8 f4 and get everybody in focus. Yeah. I think you could get everybody in focus at f4. So just back up, shoot long, and just expose for people's faces. This is a very hard thing to light. If you haven't done it, it can be very difficult. Especially if you're trying to work with multiple lights, getting multiple lights powered up right can be difficult. So I think for my Patreons, I'm going to write up how to do big group photos. That's something that would be useful to y'all. Like how to do like 10 to 20 people groups, 30 people groups, 50 people groups. Because, we get asked to do that quite a bit. And if you have a skill and can make them look interesting, I think that's a good value add to whatever clients you may have, whether they be wedding or corporate or family, right? If you can pull that off and make them look interesting, I think that's a good marketable skill to have. So I'll probably write more about this one, but this is the photo we're talking about. All right, let's see. We have two. Here's Mary's. What's up, Mary from Fort Lauderdale? She says this one is from her grandmother. So couple things here. I love the colors, right? So we have a pink robe and blue skies. You said it was taken, what, like 6:30 this morning? This is a fresh photo. It was taken today. But I love the pink robe, kind of the yellow in the windows, and then the blue sky, right? That color combination is very pleasing to the eye. It's something we want to look at, just colors alone. Right, if we kind of squint and just see colors, it's pleasing before we see any detail. I love the Christmas lights kind of twinkling in the back, her little sandals, and then the mask, right? So it's of this time. It's either taken now or 1919, right? Those are our two time frames where people would be wearing masks like this. And so, I love this. I love her pose, right? It makes me feel like, hey, she might be a little cold, that little chill, right? Maybe she's not feeling well. Those arms crossed, the mask on, that kind of, she's kind of hunched over a little bit. So, I think the pose as well. And then the way the ramp goes, it's kind of single point photography, right? So we have converging lines running to the point, and then she exists where that point would be. So compositionally, there's a lot going on there. The only thing I would change on the lower left, that angle of I don't know what it is. It's the rest of everything is pretty straight, but that one's curved. And I don't know if that's just because it's how it really is, but that's something that kind of draws my eye. I would maybe crop in where there's not that little black gap on the left. It just feels like there's a little bit, I don't know. It's just kind of angled on the left-hand side. I would just pull in from that left just a little bit up. Not much, just a little bit. But I think that would go a long way. So, yeah, I really love the tonality, the expression. I think there's a lot going on. So, yeah, it's good. I like this one. Good tone, good vibe. I don't have anything mean to say about it. All right. So earlier we had Jenna doing a flower shot. So this is the alternative, right? Go Josh crazy, add lights, throw a bunch of stuff in the air. Hey, all right. Josh style. So I love, the swooshie of the dress here, right? We have swooshy dress. We have flowers exploding in the air. That's very fun. We kind of have her turning and kind of a fun angle in the arm. We have good color in the sky. There's a lot going on here. I would say I would bet the client really loves this photo. Here's what I would change. The horizon line kind of runs along and then almost swallows her head. Look at that horizon line. It kind of goes along just with her head. And so I would have gotten a little bit lower, got more of the sky, less of the ground, but then brought her head above the horizon line. Just a little bit, right? If you come down a foot and shoot up a little bit, right? Her head's above that horizon line. So I think this also might have been stronger as a vertical instead of a horizontal, right? So if you just imagine, just bring your hands over the photo and go vertical, right? Because then we have her and all the flowers going, but we kind of get rid of those trees on the left because those aren't really adding anything to the photo. They're just kind of black blobs. And so either raising up your shadows to bring up those shadows so you can see what's in the background, or going with a vertical crop here. I think a vertical 8x10 would be pretty interesting because that's kind of where the action is. The far left and the far right of the photo aren't really adding anything to it compositionally. So maybe try it, right? Just and Lightroom's crop tool is so weird. You have to hit the letter X, which is normally delete, but you have to hit X to change the orientation to vertical to horizontal. I know. It's crazy. I would never have programmed it that way, but I'm not Adobe. So yeah, I think this is better I think it's cleaner as a vertical crop than a horizontal crop. But I love the turn of the dress. I love the flowers in the air. All those things are great. So yeah, it's a good one to finish on, right? So we had a lot of portraits today. A lot of portraits. That's good. Thanks again to all of our Patreons for supporting us and so that we have time to do shows like this. I think they're a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing them. So yeah, we'll be doing their next two ones on December 15th. We're doing Learn Lightroom Live. I haven't decided exactly what I want to do with it, but we'll be doing Lightroom Live for that. And then on the 22nd of December is going to be our next Josh Says Mean Things. So if you want to start supporting us, it's patreon.com/azulox. That helps us with producing our podcasts and our shows like this, and then all of our educational articles and everything that we're writing. I've also, on all our articles, I've been trying to put Lightroom presets on them just to give y'all some experience, trying to get into my mind about how I'm editing, what I'm doing. I just think it adds just that little bit more. Yeah, and we also launched our merch store today. So yeah, we have a whole lot of fun stuff going on. So I appreciate y'all being here today. I appreciate y'all's support. Tell your friends so that the next time... Oh, I missed a photo from Naomi. Naomi, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. I will get you in the next show. I totally forgot to download that file. She had a great orange dancer. Maybe we lost it in the crash. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll add that to the next show. But yeah, you know, I love critiquing photos. I love trying to get into people's heads without knowing exactly what they were doing. It's fun to kind of throw out and guess and just make suggestions. I don't know. It's fun for me. I hope it's fun for y'all. Tell your friends about what we're doing. And I hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving and ate all the pie you wanted to eat. And then we'll see y'all mid-December where we're going to talk more specific Lightroom stuff. Awesome, y'all.